It's time to talk about the red-headed stepchild of the lookup family, HLOOKUP. HLOOKUP is one of the most underutilized functions, but it is important to acknowledge that it does exist. HLOOKUP is the polar opposite of VLOOKUP. Instead of using the vertical search in order to output a value, it uses a horizontal search to find the individual row outputs. In this instance, we're searching for a specific product code, and we're trying to find the output in particular warehouses around the globe. In this case here, the product code is here, on the top row, meaning that we're going to be searching horizontally, and from here, finding the row output from the top. Let's go ahead and build it out. Placing your cursor here in cell B6, we're going to go ahead and insert our function arguments box by finding the FX button here or in the Formulas tab. Either way, go ahead and search for HLOOKUP, all one word once again. Once you find it, go ahead and click OK. It looks almost identical because it is identical. It's the same function, simply searching from a different direction. In this case, our lookup value will be here, B5. And because we have the foresight to know we're probably going to autofill this down, let's do ourselves a favor and absolute reference it now. The next thing it's looking for is the table array. Where is it going to be searching for XP200? And on top of that, where is it going to be searching for the outputs for warehouse 1, 2, and 3? It's going to be searching here, from A11 to G14. We're going to need to absolute reference that one as well because remember, always absolute reference the table array. You never know if you're going to be autofilling, so hedge your bets. The next thing it's looking for, our row index number, which, just like our column index number, only starting from the top this time. For this first one, warehouse 1, how many rows from the top is warehouse 1? In this case here, the first row of values we're searching is row 1. So warehouse 1 is row index number 2. Lastly, do we want an exact or a relative match? Well, this time we're talking about database functionality, so we don't want a relative match. We don't need Excel guessing. So our range lookup will be false, or its binary equivalent of 0. Having built that all in, go ahead and click OK to lock it in. And there you go. Now that we've built that out, we can autofill down and adjust the row value number as necessary. In warehouse 2, how many rows down is the warehouse 2? 1, 2, 3. So either by opening the function arguments box and changing the row index number here, or by changing it in the formula bar up here at the top, go ahead and make changes to warehouse 2 and 3 to ensure that they're outputting the appropriate value. The last one for warehouse 3, how many rows down is it? 1, 2, 3, 4 rows down. So 2 becomes 4, and there you go. So there you have it, HLOOKUP, just like VLOOKUP, only the other way. Go ahead and take this opportunity to pause the video and try this out for yourself. Keeping on the trend of database functionality, let's talk about some other really useful database functions. VLOOKUP is great, but it only gives us a single output value. If we're trying to organize a lot of output values into a single response, VLOOKUP isn't quite what we want it to be. In this instance right here, let's say we're trying to calculate the total expenses of particular categories. In those instances, what we'd like to do is search for a particular category in this column, and once identified, take the total expenses and sum them up and output here in the total expense field. VLOOKUP can't do that for us. However, there is a database function that can. Now, this is a conditional statement. If this cell says something, then we should find the total expenses that correlate with it and sum them up. Sum and if. This is the SUMIF function we're talking about here. Go ahead and place your cursor here in cell J14 with me. And we're going to go ahead and insert our SUMIF function. We can insert our SUMIF function from either the Insert Function Arguments box and searching for SUMIF, or you can always use the Math and Trig function library and find SUMIF here. Now it's important to note that there is a SUMIFs as well. Please don't mistake the two. There is a difference and we'll talk about it. But for now, simply find SUMIF, either using Insert Function Search or the Function Library dropdown. And here we are. Now the first thing it's asking for is the range. Now the range is the field of cells that you want evaluated. In this particular instance, where are we searching to find software? Now I could go here and just click and drag everything, but that's tedious. So let's not do that. Go ahead and close out your function arguments box if you have it open, and let's help ourselves out here ahead of time. Go ahead and place your cursor anywhere inside the dataset, and tap Ctrl-A to select the entire dataset. If you feel more comfortable clicking and dragging, you're more than welcome. Just simply ensure that you've highlighted everything from the headers down to the very bottom of the dataset. I promised you it was coming back. Let's go ahead and create some named ranges out of these. Now, we have headers, meaning we can use which of these, define name or create from selection. Well, as I hover over create from selection, you'll notice it says automatically generate names from the selected cells. In this case here, this is the tool we want. I'm going to click create from selection. And in this instance, it's a little confused. It doesn't know where my headers are. Am I pulling names from the left or from the top? I'm not pulling it from the left because that's just another column. I'm pulling my headers from the top row, so I'm going to deselect the left column and leave top row selected and click OK. I've now created categories: division, category, January, February, March, and total expenses, all derived from this highlighted data. Let's see if that makes a difference to us when we're building out our SUMIF. Once again, let's go ahead and open up our SUMIF function arguments box. I'm going to use the Math and Trig function library and find SUMIF. Once again, ensure that you are not using SUMIFs, but SUMIF. So once again, what's our range? Our range is where we are looking to find software. Which of these columns contains our search criteria? In this case here, we're searching for software in the category column. Now, instead of clicking and dragging to highlight all of that, I'm going to use the Use in Formula dropdown to select category. And check it out. On the right-hand side here, I see technical support, telephone, copying. Those are the first three entries in the category column, so I know that it's referencing the right data. Next, I'm looking for the search criteria. What am I looking for in the category column? In this case here, I'm searching for software in the category column. I want to find the word software, so I'm going to go ahead and click here. No matter what this cell says, I'd like Excel to search that word in the category column. So currently I'm finding software in the category column. Now, once I find software, what would I like to do? My sum range. This is the most important part here. Once I find each individual instance of software, which of these cells am I going to, from this row, sum together? In this case, I'd like to sum up the total expenses that correlate with software in the category column. My sum range, while I could click and drag from the top down for total expenses, I've also created a named range called total expenses. So just like that, my range is category. This is where I'm searching for my criteria, in this case, software. Once I find all instances of software, I'm going to sum up all of their correlated total expenses. Look how simple that is with named ranges. Isn't that something? Once you've got that up and running, go ahead and click OK. And there you go. So in software, we spent $17,215 in Q1. Now the cool part about SUMIF wasn't that we were able to pull that number out, although that is pretty cool in and of itself. It was that we told it to reference this cell. We didn't tell it to search for software. We told it to search for whatever word was in this cell. So I can change this word to any category, and the number should, in theory, change. So let's try rent. Tap enter, and check it out. The total expense field automatically updated. What about advertising? Spelling does count. Wow, $144,000. Go ahead and take this opportunity to pause the video and make sure your SUMIF function is working. Once again, the way we got there was by inserting a SUMIF function, either from the insert function arguments box or from the math and trig dropdown towards the bottom. Once we did that, we implemented named ranges to determine the category, which is where we were searching for the criteria. Our criteria is what we were searching for, and our sum range was what we wanted added together when we found our fields. Go ahead and pause the video and take this opportunity to try this for yourself. All right, now that we've tried that once, let's try it with another one. This time, we're looking for the average expenses of a particular category. So we're not going to be using SUMIF this time, but we are still asking an if question. We're just not summing. So what function is out there, or might be out there, that instead of summing based on an if, averages based on an if? Please don't make me spell it out any more than that. We're looking for the average if function. Now the average if function can be found from the insert functions box or from more functions, statistical average if. Once again, there is an average ifs. However, we'll be talking about that one in just a little bit. Go ahead and find average if and give it a click. It looks identical to the SUMIF function because it is. The only difference is the mathematical calculation that takes place within the range field. So in this case here, our range. Once again, where are we searching to find our criteria? Our criteria is the category rent. So where are we searching for the word rent? Well, in the category column. We could click and drag to select the category fields, but this is tedious. Instead of doing that, because we created a named range, all we have to do is click that Use in Formula dropdown here in the Formulas tab and select Category. Once again, verify that on the right-hand side you should see the first 3 instances of the category column: technical support, telephone, and copying. Our criteria, or the cell that we're using to determine what we're searching for, is here, in cell I-20. So whatever this cell says right here, we're going to be searching for in the category column. Lastly, what field are we averaging together once we find all instances of rent? We're going to go ahead and use total expenses once again. So go ahead and click on that Use in Formula dropdown and find total expenses. Once again, verifying that these instances match the column: 2,150, 2,150, 26, 26, good. Hopefully you're starting to see here that named ranges can really pay off when it comes to building out database functionality. Once you've got everything where you want it, go ahead and click OK. And there you go. It's just that easy. So the average expense for rent is $17,790. I can now change this to something like overhead to see what the average there is. In this case, $3,700, or maybe telephone. 2,400. Pretty cool. So it's searching for all available instances in the category column and giving us the total and average expenses. I could even link this cell using linking data, which we learned about in a previous lesson, to reference this cell, meaning that whatever I type inside this cell right here will reflect in both. So if I type rent, I can get the total expense and the average expense instantly. Pretty cool, huh? Go ahead and pause the video and take this opportunity to try that for yourself, and then come back for the last part. All right, welcome back. So we've got one last box to search in. We're trying to find total expenses for category, but this time not just the category, but a specific division category. So in this example here, SUMIF isn't going to cut it. SUMIF only allows for one search criteria. Instead, we're going to need to turn to a sum function that allows for multiple ifs. Oh, come on. I know you know where I'm going with this. Yes, we're talking about SUMIFs. So using either the insert functions argument box or the math and trig dropdown, we're going to find SUMIFs with an S at the end, indicating multiple conditions. And here we are, back again. This time, instead of starting with the range, it's starting with the sum range, which is the number of fields we want added together. In this case here, it's going to be total expenses once again. So I'm going to click on my Use in Formula dropdown, select total expenses, the named range that I created earlier, and now I can focus on the next field. In this case here, criteria range 1. Well, what's my first range going to be? In this case, we'll say that the first range is going to be division. We're going to be searching inside the division column to find the word east. As with all of these, I could click and drag to select that entire column, but instead, I'm going to use that named range I created. In this case, the division named range. And I can see here, east, 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 east. Yep, that all lines up. So I'm searching inside the division column for what? Well, I'm searching for the word east, here in cell I8. So whatever I8 says, that's the division I'm searching for. The next thing it's asking for is criteria range 2. Okay, so we're on the next field. In this case, we're searching for category. So we're going to need to find the category named range. Total expenses is the sum range. Criteria range 1, we're searching for division. We're searching for east in the division column. We're searching in category for the second range. And we're searching for software in cell J8. And there you go. Now, of course, you can allow for multiple criterias. You can actually have up to 127 different criterias. In this case here, however, we only need 2. So, having done all that, let's go ahead and click OK to lock it in. And there you go. So in the East Division category of software, they spent $5,875. Meanwhile, in the North Division for the same category, they spent less, $3,805. What about the North Division in contractors? $3,750. What about the West? Is there a West? There is a West, and they spent the same amount. Convenient. What about the South? Wow, the South spent a lot on contractors. So it's interesting to see how we can pull this information out. I might want to look into this if this was my company. And there you go. So ifs, sum ifs, average ifs allow for multiple conditions. However, all of these functions, sum, average, count even, allow for us to build out database functionality that, based on certain conditions, pulls out a predetermined cell and sums, averages, or counts it up. Go ahead and take this opportunity to pause the video and try this for yourself. It's pretty cool.